Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. So for today, I chose to replicate the PaintPot app part 1 available on the MIT App Inventor tutorial. And the goal of the app is to draw on it using our fingers and to be able to switch between three colors. You can draw on a picture or you can draw on a blank canvas. I chose specifically this tutorial to introduce a very important component, which is, as I mentioned, the canvas. So the canvas allows you to do two main things. It allows you to draw on your screen, as we're going to see in this version and in the next video, in the second version of the app. And it allows you to add some components that you can give animation to. And this becomes very interesting and opens the door to very creative ideas. Like the sky is literally the limit in this case. Once done, our app will look something like this. So I would be able to switch paintbrush colors by pressing on either one of these buttons. And if I press on the blue button, for example, and start drawing on the screen, I can draw some very nice, let's say, things on it. You know, forgive my lack of artistic side. Now, we are not going to be dealing with the size of the paintbrush or anything like that. We will leave the extra features to the second video. And we will see now in this version mainly the coding aspects and how we are going to connect everything together. So without further ado, let's get going. So to start off, we are going to be creating a new app, and I took the liberty of adding an image to our media list where we can use later on to assign it to the canvas. Now, to start off, we're going to add the three buttons that are going to control the color of the paintbrush. But you will notice at first that when you start placing your components on the screen, you will notice that the buttons stack up vertically. And we don't have a lot of leverage when you go to the screen properties. You don't have a lot of leverage in controlling the position of your components pixel by pixel, let's say, as in other mobile app development platforms. So what we're going to do is introduce a new component that is the layout horizontal arrangement in our case. So in the horizontal arrangement, what we're going to do is we're going to place the buttons inside of it. And you notice that they stack up now horizontally as you're basically putting them on the shelf. I have more space now in the vertical dimension where I can add more components or use a wider canvas in this case. But we still need to adjust a bit the size. So to do that, I'm going to start by changing the width of my horizontal arrangement to fill parent, first of all. Then I'm going to do the same for the buttons, and in some way they align symmetrically or rearrange themselves symmetrically inside my horizontal arrangement. After that, I'm going to start by customizing a bit the buttons. First of all, since we have multiple buttons, it's a good practice to rename these buttons. So I'm going to name this one the red button, so we don't get confused in the coding. I'm going to also give it a color, and you can do that in the properties first option, actually, the background color right here. So in our case, we are going to switch this one to red, automatically updated on the screen. And then we are going to change the text inside of it to red. A quick note, if you want to change the shape of the button, you are allowed to customize with other options. We can make it a bit rounded edge. Maybe that would be nicer depending on your taste. So we're going to do the same now for button 2. So button 2 will be the blue button. Make sure we switch it to blue. And we change the text as well. Finally, we're going to do the same for the third button, which is the green button in our case. We are going to switch to green here. Right. And done. Now, we have everything set up so we can introduce our canvas, and the canvas is located in drawing and animation on your left. So when you go to the palette, drawing and animation, you see that you have the canvas, the ball, and the image sprite. So the ball and the image sprite are basically the stuff that you can add and give animation to that I mentioned, but we'll be seeing those hopefully in later videos. Now for our case, we're going to be dragging the canvas and putting it on the screen. We're going to be adjusting the size a bit. So I would say I want to benefit from all the width that I have available on my screen, and I'm going to set fill parent. However, in terms of height, I want to keep a bit of space below it in order to add some more things. So I would say I would like to put it, instead of pixels this time, I'm going to switch it to 80%. And what it does is basically fills it to about, or make it 70% of the screen. And this is a bit better if you're using an emulator on your computer. So right now we're seeing the viewer on an actual phone. So we have already the size of the screen in front of us in the parentheses. But if we switch to a monitor, you notice that the picture suddenly blows out of proportion. So by keeping it at percentage, we basically make sure that our size indications are generic and can adapt to other screen sizes. Now, if you want to add a picture, we can go to background image right here in the canvas properties, and then once we have our our image in the media list, we can just upload it directly, and our cat is showing right on the screen. Now the final component that we can add is a button, and we're going to rename this one to wipe button. Okay, this is in order to erase what we have done and start all over. Now you might be interested to to use a different picture or not use any picture at all. Now, once done and tested, I will try to add an extra component, which is basically 2 buttons to allow us to toggle between an image or a blank canvas. So adding 2 buttons, we will add an extra functionality outside of the tutorial to allow the user to toggle between this picture and a black canvas. But first of all, let's finish these features and test them to make sure that they are working. So in order to code our app and finish it off, we need to divide the working process into multiple features to build them. And we can do that by saying that we need to first code the 3 buttons in order to be able to switch the colors. We need to code the ability to paint on the canvas, and we're gonna code 2 things specifically: how to draw a circle, so when we touch the screen that a circle should appear, and if we drag on the screen, we should be able to draw a line. So these are the 2 things that we should cover in terms of canvas. And finally, we should be able to code the wipe button to erase everything that we have written on our canvas. So mainly 3 big sections, and later on we will add the 4th one, which is toggling the image as we go along. So to start off, let's do the coloring buttons. So it's easy for us because the event handler is very clear here. So clicking the button will activate the transition or the change. So I'm going to go to red button, for example, and it's easy for me to detect the event handler, which is when red button dot click. Now, to be able to switch the color on the canvas, we will go to canvas, and we will look in the green blocks related to properties to set canvas.paint color. So we are changing here the painting color in our canvas. But we need to assign a color, and to do that, you're going to go to your built-in blocks and look inside colors. So this is also one of the benefits of using block-based coding, because everything is set for us. We don't have to go fetch the color code, for example, for the color. It's already, although with limited options, but it is already made available to us. Or you can make the color by specifying the RGB quantities. We will do the same for the blue button very quickly and for the green button. So it's easy since we already know the event handlers, and the process is very simple. I'm just going to duplicate these 2 lines. There you go. We can throw these away, and we can look for colors right here. So blue button will assign this, green button, assign this, and we're basically done with the first 3 features. Now let's move to the canvas. So for the canvas, I need to code 2 things as I mentioned. First, when I touch the screen, I want to see a dot or a circle. A circle will likely simulate the dot if I'm not able to draw a dot, and I want to code the feature to draw a line. So if you look in your purple blocks, you see you have the option to draw an arc, to draw a circle, a line, to draw a point, nice, very nice, to draw a shape, text, and so on. So in my case, to draw a point, now I don't know how big the point or how visible the point is. So I'm gonna stick to a circle in this case, but we need our event handler first, the condition that will activate everything. So I'm gonna choose when canvas1.touched. There you go. And then I'm gonna go and look for draw a circle. Okay, so for draw a circle, you need to specify the center of the circle in terms of X and Y position, the radius, and the fill if it's true or not. So if it's an arc or a filled circle. Now, we didn't discuss actually the X and Y position. So the canvas has a reference point right here for a Cartesian grid. So if you don't know what a Cartesian grid is, it's basically how you point out or you locate something on a 2D space where you have 2 reference axes, the x-axis in the horizontal direction and the y-axis in the vertical direction. And your reference point and the axes are at the top left and pointing in these directions as I've drawn here. So for example, if you want to locate this point right here, you can do that by specifying its horizontal direction from your reference side, from this side, which is your X component in this case, and you can specify its vertical position, which is the Y component in this case. So when I say I'm referring to the X and Y position of a certain element, I'm specifying its horizontal and vertical distance from my main reference point. And this is very important when we later move to animation and in drawing. It's very important for you to know where your reference is so you can basically measure or keep track of the things that you are placing or assigning. Now, in our case, we don't need to scratch our head and think deeply about these because they are already made available. So if you hover your mouse or cursor just above the X and Y elements, they will flash up and you can select get or set. So you can select get X, and what you're basically doing is grabbing a variable that contains the X position of where you touched on the screen and assigning it as the center of the circle that you're gonna draw. This is what we call a local variable. And we're gonna go again very deeply into variables in some upcoming videos. But just as a small notion, variables are elements that you can assign information to, and you can assign basically any information. This is why it's called a variable. It can vary in terms of information, and it allows you to store some information and retrieve it anytime you wish. So you can find them here. Actually, you can hover your cursor here, or you can go to variables if you want, select get, place it at center Y, for example, and switch to Y. So these are local variables because they are only accessible inside this block, inside the when canvas.touched. If I click it outside, you notice that I don't have any variables here. So when I click on get outside of this function, I don't have any variables because these variables are only present in your memory when you are in this block, and outside of it, they will not appear. They'll be erased from your memory. And the reason we do that in coding is because some information is only used once or in specific cases. So it does allow you to save on memory usage when you have a big chunk, a big code. This is particularly useful in text-based coding. So I still need to specify the radius. I'm gonna select a radius of 5 in this case, just for demonstration. So we have a reasonable dot, let's say, to see on our screen. And that is it for the dots on when you touch the canvas. We still need to do the line. So the line is actually easy. You look in your event handlers and automatically you see that you have your one canvas one dot dragged. So it means that when you drag on your screen, when you're dragging your finger on the screen, now when I do that, I want to be able to draw a line. And this is also available in your purple blocks again to draw a line. But you need to specify 2 points. So you need to specify the x1, y1, x2, y2. And if you're familiar a bit with geometry, this is basically just drawing a line between 2 points. So this is your first point. Let's draw it like this. And this is your second point. Let me just erase it. So let's say this is your first point right here. And this is your second point right here. And you draw a line between these two because you need 2 points to be able to draw a straight line. And x1 and y1 will be the horizontal and vertical positions of the first point, and x2 and y2 will be the horizontal and vertical positions of the second point, keeping in mind that this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. So based on this small demonstration, we can say that the x1 is your previous x from the previous position, and y1 is your previous y, and current x is your x2 and current y is y2. So that way, this makes it a bit dynamic. So as you move along, you're plotting basically. Think about it this way. As you move along pixel by pixel, you're drawing a straight line pixel by pixel. But on a larger scale, you will be able to see any curve you want because you're basically connecting them on such a fine line that it's not noticeable. This is if you want to think about it on a very, very small scale. And this would cover mainly everything related to the canvas. Now, all we have to do is code our white button. So the event handler is quite simple here. We just press on the white button dot click. And to erase everything on your canvas, we're going to go to canvas. And it's actually the first option called canvas1.clear. So we place it like this. And we're done in terms of basic stuff. That's mainly it. So all we're left with is to test it. We're going to do that by going to connect as usual, selecting AI companion. We get a 6-digit code that I'm going to enter in my emulator to be able to connect the app together. Right, so this is the app that we built. We notice that it's a bit stretched since we're on a monitor, but nonetheless, the buttons are clearly visible and we can test it. So let's go for white. If you press on a dot, if you press only once, you can see the dots, right? But if you draw, you notice that the line is thinner than the dots. So you can change that actually when we go to the second part of in the second version, we will be able to control the size of the brush when we draw a line. So this is something that we are going to consider as well. Let's switch to the other colors that just to check if everything is working fine. Try the green one, and then finally, if I press swipe, everything is cleared, all good. Our app is working perfectly. Now, as I mentioned, we can add an extra feature a bit outside the scope of the tutorial on MIT App Inventor. And what I'm thinking of is how we can switch or allow the user to switch between one picture or a blank canvas, not multiple pictures at this stage. So the first thought that comes to mind is why don't we add 2 more buttons, but you will need to add a horizontal arrangement first. So you can do it as follow. Just put the wipe button inside the horizontal arrangement and then add 2 more inside of it. So the first one, I'm gonna just call it image on. Image on. And the second one is gonna be, image off. So, and we can also adjust the text. So this one would be select. Okay, and this one will be blank. Oh, Yeah, let's go for this one. Okay, all good, symmetric. We can adjust a bit the sizing just to make sure that everything fits well. If you want to change a bit the description inside the buttons, yeah, that should work. Oh, you notice that this message is off, so let's just put it back at automatic. Yeah, this is a bit nicer. Okay, now it's simple, but you have to keep in mind at how you name the image in your media list. And the reason for that is that when you go to blocks, the first thing that you can do is, for example, if you press image on, if you press on image on, so if image on is clicked, you can go to canvas, and in your green block properties, you look at set background image to, right? And already MIT App Inventor suggested the name of the kitten image or the cat image that we are using. So to specify, if you want to assign a picture in your media list, you can do it either on the designer, as I said, or in the coding. As you know, that the properties, you can access them in the coding section as well. But to mention it, you have to name it specifically as is. So you would have to write, you have to get an empty text and write, for example, kitty.png, exactly as it is written in your media list. Now, in our case, in the new versions of MIT App Inventor, it actually does it for us, so no need to worry about it. But nonetheless, this is good to keep in mind. So when the image on is clicked, I would set the background image to the cat option, and when the image off is clicked, I would set the image background to, and then now I want to basically say it's going to be empty. So I'm going to leave it as an empty box in this case. And now I'm going to test it just to see the difference. So let's go to connect AI companion. Right. So again, same image. Let's see if our new features work. So select empty image, select image, empty image. Nice. So if we're drawing, and then I decided I don't want this anymore, I can just erase it, but you know, it empties the canvas along with it. So that is an issue that we're gonna need to have a look at. So if I could do it without having to replace what I'm drawing, that would be great. But it's still, it added more flexibility, allowed the user to choose a bit. And when you're building mobile or developing mobile apps, you want as much flexibility for the user as possible. So that's it for this small tutorial. Again, if you can leave a like and subscribe, that would really help the channel. And next time we will, the next video will be the second part of the PaintPot tutorial, where we'll be looking into some advanced features and functionalities. So I'll see you in the next video.